And welcome everybody to the Paws Up preview in week 5 of the college football season. FIU's non-conference schedule is over. Now they're getting ready to take on the rest of Conference USA, starting off with a home matchup against the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs on Saturday at 8 o'clock. Or is it 8 o'clock or is it 6 o'clock? 6 p.m. Okay, so I'm Jake Gibson. That's Kevin Barral, my friend and co-host, and things could be going better for the Panthers. Kevin, just off the rip, a 1-3 record. They had that very impressive win against Central Michigan to debut Pitbull Stadium, but you combine that loss to Indiana to start the season, a tough blowout against FAU, and then most recently just dropping the ball literally against Monmouth in a high-scoring shootout that didn't go their way against an FCS team. It's not the best time in the world to be a FIU football. They got to find an answer.
Yeah, I mean, worst start under Mike McIntyre, 1-3. Yeah, the vibes, entering the season, they were very high.
They took a hit.
They took a huge hit because it's and we cover the team. Obviously, we try to stay as unbiased as we can. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, we're fans. We know, like, you're an alumni. I'm currently a student. It's hard to take these losses and just say, all right, well, you lose and move on. I mean, the FAU one stung. That one really stung because, I mean,
the fact that we were there too.
Not it. I mean, not even that. It's just like the fact that it's a rival. You felt like you had a really good shot. That one hurt. Then you go on to Monmouth, which that really should not have turned into what it did.
Yeah.
Even if it was a close game, you would have felt decent going into La Tech. You're 2-2. You're at 500.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to go 5-3 to make a bowl game, and not even. You have to go 5-3 to make a bowl game. 5-3. So in this conference, the one thing it's shown is that they're going to play close games every single day, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the conference as a whole because now we're going into this conference slate, and the conference is looking a lot different, and it may look a little bit different depending on what this realignment stuff all turns into. But I mean, it was definitely a underwhelming non-conference slate for FIU. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of good to be noted. I mean, as we kind of mentioned, that Central Michigan game kind of was the culmination of what this FIU team could really look like at their best. I don't know how much of that is just how bad Central Michigan is, but I mean, Kiwan put up a pretty good game. You had the defense force 5 turnovers. And then you look at these next 2 games, JoJo Evans is out because of a targeting call late into the second half of the game. So you got to ask yourself how much of that really made an impact because JoJo Evans, the first 2 games was really damn good. I mean, he had an interception in the second game. First game, he led the team in total tackles. So you kind of have to ask yourself just, what's happening there. And then the other positives, I mean, Brian Blades has been really good. He has been one of the best cornerbacks in college football. Victor Evans III has kind of taken over that Zeke Massis spot as the other cornerback, being one of the best rated cornerbacks in the country. On top of that, CJ Christian is having himself one hell of a start to the season. True. He's currently 6th in Conference USA in total tackles. Then you have Travion Barnes, who took over for Reggie Peterson. He's currently 7th in the nation in solo tackles. He's, I believe, 14th in total tackles. He's 1st in Conference USA in solos. And then he is, I believe, 2nd in the conference in total tackles. He has been really good. He has the longest pick six or longest interception return of the year, longest one in program history at 85 yards. I mean, at this point, I think that one game, honestly, was just a fluke game for the defense. I mean, you kind of noticed they went in with a good game plan. At least the offense did. And that's something that Kewan mentioned. He said they were going to attack through the air. They knew they could get them through the air, and rightfully so. I mean, Kewan threw for over 300 yards.
He did so good.
A couple touchdowns out there too. So you kind of got to ask yourself what went wrong. And I think it was just
lack of running game.
Well, not even that. I mean,
it was a part of it for sure.
Of course. I mean, but on the defensive end is where really a lot went wrong. True. And I mean, that was, and we're kind of talking about this. Obviously, you're in the heat of the moment. You say some things that maybe you kind of look back and you're telling yourself, maybe not, but it was definitely one of the more embarrassing losses of the season and of honestly the Coach McIntyre era. True. And that goes back to us seeing them lose 73-0 to Western Kentucky a couple years back. But I mean, Western was a really good team. Then
they were a bowl. I'm pretty sure they were a bowl team that year. They made it to a bowl game and they might have won. I mean, Monmouth an FCS team that had some rough losses to begin the season. We knew coming into this game, right? Monmouth had one of the better offenses in FCS. Their quarterback put up ridiculous numbers before that game, but it's still no excuse for the defense to come out that flat. They actually came out strong with that Travion Barnes pick six to start things off.
You thought, got off to a great start, and that's the big thing too. I mean, they really did. I mean, you had the Travion Barnes. I mean, and the other thing is they just couldn't get to the quarterback, man. They caused enough pressure. They couldn't do it. And the one thing that I just didn't see coming, honestly, was the amount of times they went on it for fourth down. I think it was like 5 for 7 or something like that. And in one of those fourth downs, I believe they scored a touchdown, which goes back to the FIU game where they went for it on fourth down, and Zuberi Mobley was able to take it all the way. So honestly, this is an non-con that you kind of just want to close the book on and move on and assume you're 0-0 on the season, because these are the games that matter now. This is what really counts, the conference games. If you want to get as far as you want, you got to win these conference games, and there's pressure. There is pressure for this team to win. This La Tech game, I mean, we talked about how big the FAU game was. We talked about Monmouth. This is a pretty damn big game just to get off on the right foot in the conference play. FIU's yet to be one. They haven't been 1-0 in conference play since 2018. I mean,
dog, I was a freshman, game, bro.
Yeah, exactly. This is a La Tech game. This is a La Tech team that we'll talk about a little bit later, but it's very beatable. It is a very beatable team. They don't have Smoke Harris anymore. They don't have a lot of the defensive guys that they had last year, despite actually the defense being the best part of their team. So we'll obviously talk about that later, but I think the best way to put the non-con slate is that you were never able to get a complete game from both sides of the ball. And there were games that, we spoke to Q on today. He blamed himself for the FAU loss, and honestly, I would blame him as well. I mean, there were really bad decisions there that he made, and he would tell you himself that he probably made some really bad decisions, and he would like to take some of those back. The first interception, the third interception of the game, the really bad pass there that led to the second interception. Sometimes you wish you were running instead of throwing, and vice versa. I mean,
to get back to Monmouth, we don't want to talk too much about that Monmouth game. Obviously, it's one of those games where the whole team has to throw it away. Look to what's coming up next, and it's La Tech. Shout out Derek Robertson. I mean, he came into that game on fire, and he just continued to do so. 361 yards, 2 touchdowns. And like you had mentioned, Kevin, he got the ball out in a second or less. Like he was frustrating to watch from the press box, just because of how quickly he was getting the ball out. FIU's defensive line had no answers. So Keyshawn Owens for FIU, by the way, or Eric Rivers, I should say, back-to-back games with over 100 yards. That's really great to see for him. He's turning into one of the premier FIU wide receivers, I'd say. And don't want to beat on a dead bush here, but Kevin, I believe it was Rivers as well who coughed up the ball at not even the 1 yard line, the 1 inch line. But as the clock was ticking down, obviously, to say that loss is purely on that is absolutely crazy, because they shouldn't have been in that spot to begin with, being in a 45-42 game against an FCS squad. But obviously, you wonder if Rivers, instead of going in for that effort, I don't even think there were any Panthers near him to give him that push. He was surrounded by Hawks. If he slid, fell, took the knee, you'd have first and goal at the 1 yard line with plenty of time. Not to mention FIU had 2 timeouts. Something could have happened there.
And the one thing to know really quickly to note is, I mean, I would have to look back at it, but I was talking to some folks today, and they were saying like that could have been ruled dead at that point, because he really wasn't moving too much in that moment. We'll have to look at the replay. I actually really would like to look at it. But like, he wasn't moving much. Like at that point, it was really opposite forces really hitting one another, and you could have called it dead. Like, it was really, really close to where the ref could have said, all right, that's it. He's not really moving much more. He's not going to move anymore. But hey, man, I mean, he tried to do something in there. He tried to continue moving. You could also make the case maybe he was trying to burn some clock to not give enough time for Monmouth to score. So yeah, I mean, there's different ways to look at it. Definitely would have been helpful if it was ruled dead at that point, which would have given FIU at least a couple plays to burn some clock and eventually either nail in a field goal or actually go for the win.
All right, let's take a quick look here at how the game ended, just to provide some context for that final play. It was 2nd and 1.
Left guard 1. Jenkins throws. He's got Rivers over the middle, complete. Breaks a tackle at the 10. Bounces it outside at the 5. Rivers trying to get in the end zone. Taken down.
Lost the ball.
And it's a fumble. Monmouth thinks they have it at the goal line.
You can probably see me like in that corner right there.
You're here?
I was in the play.
You?
No. You may have to scroll back. Like I don't think you see me at all in the play, actually.
Okay. No, it's pretty. Is that
no?
No, that's not
Rivers
you.
trying to get in the
No,
end
I'm like
zone.
right next to that security right there, and that
Okay. Well, regardless, it's a tough way to lose, but you can't put too much blame on Rivers because, like I said, they shouldn't have been at the point where they were fighting for their lives against an FCS squad. And I think we talked about this before the season began, Kevin, with Johnny as well. As when we were talking about their non-con slate, if they went 2-2, we considered it a success. If they went 3-1, it would be amazing. If they went 4-0, they're probably winning Conference USA. But to go 1-3, they've set themselves up for such a difficult task to get into the bowl game because, you're taking on the teams that from Conference USA the FIU could be expected to win, such as UTEP, New Mexico State, and Kennesaw. But even if you win all those games, if you win those 3 games against UTEP, New Mexico State, and Kennesaw, you have 4 wins. You still need 2 more against Liberty and Lynchburg, which, I mean, come on, that's tough. Sam Houston State in your Vice game, which will be difficult, and Middle Tennessee, an opponent you haven't beaten in a very long time. So 1-3, I hate to say for this FIU team, and I get it. We're rooting for them and all. It's a massive failure for the grand scope of this season, and I just don't know if they're going to have enough to get 5 wins against conference teams, and like you said, a very competitive division.
And you could even make the case that, they may just get 1 more win out of this whole season.
True.
Which would be against Kennesaw, and maybe you slip in a win against UTEP. Against New Mexico State. I really don't see them winning in UTEP. You're going to the Sun Bowl. That, for those who have been there, I mean, that's a
tough place to play.
Not even that. It's just a tough place to get there to begin with. So
True.
Not easy. As you mentioned, Sam Houston may be a lot better than we expect. I think FIU may be able to handle business at home on Vice night with the new Vice jerseys. We'll see what happens there. I really don't see them winning in Lynchburg, unfortunately. That place has been rocking recently with the amount of fans that have gone. I think they broke their own record.
Yeah, the attendance numbers are like 40. They're averaging 40K or something crazy.
Some sort of number like that, definitely. Jack State may be a little bit more beatable than we thought.
True.
And then obviously you dodge a huge bullet with Western Kentucky, but you're going to have to face them next year. So, man, they really need to capitalize off this conference slate. I mean, it has been set up in a way that the home games are the more favorable ones for them with New Mexico State, Middle Tennessee, which honestly should be a beatable team.
Should be.
And La Tech. And then I think you have one more, which is Sam Houston.
Yeah.
And then after that, you should be able to beat Kennesaw in Kennesaw State. Jack State, I think, is going to be a lot more beatable than people think.
Mm-hmm.
And Liberty, I mean, that's a toss-up. And UTEP, you just hope they could keep up with UTEP.
Yeah, so it's not all doom and gloom. I do want to give a quick shout-out before we continue, Kevin. I was at the field house after the press conferences with Coach after that game. I ran into the equipment team over at FIU. I said, "Hey, what's up?" I said, "Love the work you guys do." They said they love the work we do. They watch the show frequently, and I said, "Man, that post-game show, that was a real tearjerker, huh?" But I asked them, if you have anything, anything you'd like to spare, I could put in the background of the show, and then check out what they gave me. Oh my gosh, Kevin. This is a game-worn helmet. I don't know exactly the year, but look at the padding inside. It's got some scratches and bumps if you look real closely. Some cool throwback decals. Those are the T.Y. Hilton era decal. So I wanted to give a quick shout-out to the equipment team because they do great work. The FIU football team themselves commended them before that Monmouth game, and obviously they have a super fun and talented team there, and they're only getting bigger and they're only getting better, especially when I can't wait to see what they and the media team cook up for that for the Vice game against San Houston. That should be something electric. So let's talk into our upcoming opponent, the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. By the way, Johnny did go to that baseball tournament at the Love Shack in Ruston, right? He was there.
That was pretty cool. Yeah,
he got to witness that. So the Bulldogs are currently 1-2. They destroyed Nicholls State, an FCS team. They lost to NC State in a commendable loss, 30-20. I think the Wolfpack's quarterback went down. That helped a lot, but they still couldn't get the job done. And then they lost to Tulsa in overtime by a score of 23-20. Let me pull it up. Last season didn't go great for the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs either. They finished with a record of 3-9. They beat FIU in week 0, though. So it sucks. They beat Northwestern State and UTEP, and that was it. So Louisiana Tech, they off the rip, they have a weird system at quarterback, right? It's common to see college teams and even some NFL teams run a 2 QB system. We've seen the Saints do it, and we've seen some CUSA teams, just college football teams do it. They run a 3 quarterback system.
Well,
my God,
I mean, it needs to be noted. So Jack Turner's their starter.
Yes.
Probably is going to start on Saturday. He was taken out of the game to get a spark on offenses. Head coach Sonny Cumbie noted. They went with the backup. The backup got hurt, so they had to go with the third string. So they're not running a 3 quarterback system. What they're doing is they wanted someone different at quarterback, but the guy that was there was hurt. So now we don't know if he's going to be healthy or not for this game on Saturday. Now, assuming he isn't, the quarterback will probably be Jack Turner, who was the guy who was selected to go to Conference USA Media Days. He was going to be the successor to Hank Bachmeier, got a lot of starts in last season. I mean, when you talk to these FIU people, that's the guy that they have the most film on, so it's someone that they could really talk about. He is a very athletic guy, makes some big-time throws. He is a big-time quarterback, but really has struggled to get it going for La Tech this season. And it's not going to be much easier. I mean, they have one of the worst rush offenses in football.
Yeah, not good.
And I'm sorry, in Conference USA, they have the 7th. They have the third worst offense in CUSA.
Yeah.
They have the 2nd worst rush offense in CUSA, but their passing is actually really good, which kind of goes back to what Jack Turner's been doing for them, and even did last season. They're the 3rd best pass offense in CUSA. Now, granted, FIU somehow still has the 6th best offense in CUSA. So it's going to be a very interesting battle between these two teams. I'm very intrigued to see what happens. Although they don't really put many points on the board, and as you kind of noted, Jake, they've been in some really close games. FIU puts up the 2nd most points in CUSA. Now, granted, a lot of that has to do with Central Michigan, them dropping 54, and then he dropped
Monmouth as well. I mean, 42 points ain't nothing to look away from.
Joke. Yeah, exactly. La Tech puts up 21 points per game. FIU puts up 30. So
I mean, that's just what losing a player like Smoke Harris does to your team. You have to
not even that. It's just it's been overall.
He was a big part of that team last year. He was like the heart and soul of that offense.
And I asked Coach McIntyre today. We're recording this on Tuesday. I was like, how much of a relief is it kind of to not have someone like Smoke Harris there? He's like, definitely is, but you also then you have someone that's going to obviously replace what he does, and at least try to. And I think his last name is Holiday, and I'm going to look for this guy.
By the way, Smoke Harris signed with
the CFL, right?
The Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL. So good for him.
He had
some great games against us, so I'm sure he'll probably look pretty good in the CFL. I mean, just judging off of that.
So the guy that he was talking about was Jimmy Holiday, who at the moment has 4 receptions for 40 yards, no touchdowns yet, but he is 6'1", 211 pounds, pretty fast guy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pretty damn good team no matter what. Their offense is very interesting. They're definitely a pass-heavy offense. Their running backs have struggled a lot. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher yet. They don't have anyone who's totaled 100 yards throughout the season. So we'll see. I think FIU is a really good chance. They're one of the worst offenses in CUSA at the moment. So if, a lot of these offenses that struggle against the run somehow find a way to run it all up on FIU. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully that's not the case. FIU has the chance to really make a big stop here and kind of break that trend against a Louisiana Tech team that is really, really, really desperate to get it going as well. I mean, Sonny Cumbie is I mean, if we want to talk about coaches that are on the hot seat, Sonny Cumbie is definitely one who I believe is now on 3 straight years with 3-9 records. So that is not easy to come by. And, you need to start in conference play to get things going.
Let's hear from some fellows who know a thing or two about Louisiana Tech. I had the chance to speak with Evan of one of my favorite named podcasts. There is Go Tech, Please Don't Die. They've had some mixed feelings that they haven't been afraid to share on social media about the Bulldogs. So they should provide some great insights. Let's hear what they had to say. And hello, everybody. How are you doing? We hope you're enjoying our episode of the Paws Up preview so far. Now it is time to get into our opponent, the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. And with me today is none other than Evan Spencer from Go Tech. Please don't die. Evan, how are you doing?
Well, Tech's been doing a lot more dying and not a lot of going. So, I'm doing all right. The Bulldogs so far this season have underwhelmed us a little bit, to say the least. But things are good. I'm excited for this game tomorrow night. 5:00 Central Time here. I know it's 6:00 over there in Pitbull Stadium, but we'll be watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting matchup. Face value, you have two even teams that are both not doing as well as they wish they had up to this point, and it's going to make for an interesting clash there at Pitbull Stadium, like you said. So, before we get into talking about the team itself, I did want to ask you a bit about head coach Sonny Cumbie. Since joining La Tech in 2022, you had back-to-back 3-9 seasons, and now currently 1-2. Just what are your general thoughts on Cumbie, his tenure at Louisiana Tech, and if things don't get better for the Bulldogs this season, would you say he's on the hot seat from a La Tech perspective?
From a fan perspective, oh yeah. Now, from a realistic, does our athletic department have the budget to buy him out kind of perspective, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I think, in this era of college football, right, you cannot be, what is he, 7-20 in his tenure so far. He's beaten 4 FBS teams in his tenure, including one over your FIU Panthers there last year. One of the uglier games I've had the misfortune of being at. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Tech right now is we have a new athletic director who started in, the spring semester of this year. And then we've got a new president who started in January. And these guys, I just went to the Joe last weekend for our Tulsa game, and these guys are bought into the football experience. They're doing everything they can to make the game day experience, worth going to. They're controlling what they can control right now during the season. I think if things don't turn around, they might do their best to find a way to make a change at head coach. That being said, right, it is, difficult financially to get rid of somebody. So, if he could turn it around and by turn it around, I mean, go 4-8 or 5-7, right? Then maybe he earns himself another year, but the fan base is clamoring for him to be no longer at the helm of the program.
The new AD at La Tech, Ryan Ivey, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's gonna have a tough decision, regardless of how this season finishes for Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
So
let's
talk about the Bulldogs themselves.
Sure.
A very strange game last week as far as the quarterback position went. Everyone saw playing time. You had Jack Turner, who I'm assuming is going to be the starter against FIU. You have Blake Baker, and then you have Evan Bullock. What happened? I know there were injury-related issues that caused all three quarterbacks to play in that game, but from your perspective, should Jack continue to be the starter if he's available, or just between the three players, who do you see as who you would want to be the starter?
Can we go back to the transfer portal and get a new option? Jack Turner, it's really interesting. He was not injured in this last game. He was pulled after 3 drives. The third drive, Tech was moving the ball, but we were moving it on the ground.
Right.
And I make no, I'm not going to pretend. Jack Turner looked pretty off in those first 3 drives. The first 3 plays were scripted passes to the edge, kind of a 5-and-out kind of route. He missed all 3 guys by, good 7-8 yards. Just sailed the ball. He didn't look like he was comfortable. Our third drive was a 56-yard drive that ends in a fumble. The running back fumbles it, and Jack Turner got pulled after that. Now, I take a little bit of an issue with that because he was your presumptive starter, and even outright, normally coaches won't name a starting quarterback until the last week of fall camp, right? They want to at least maintain the idea of competition. That's not the case with Tech this offseason. This was Jack Turner's football team, right? Going all the way back to spring ball. This is Jack Turner's team. He's our leader. He's our captain. And then you yank him after 3 drives? I don't understand, right? And so you yank him in favor of Blake Baker, who came in and, honestly, outside of a couple of flashes, he didn't look much different. Statistically speaking, it's not that much different. He had more yards. He was in the game for longer. But, he ends up getting hurt, a collarbone injury that'll keep him out 4 to 6 weeks, they're saying. So Jack Turner got pulled. Cumbie puts him back at the helm to start the second half, then pulls him again. So if you're trying to send a message to the guy who is your starter, it's kind of a weird message to send, putting him back in and then yanking him again. Blake Baker ends up getting hurt. And so in the fourth quarter, game on the line, I think we're down 17-13. Do you go back to your guy who's the presumptive starter? No, you put in Evan Bullock, who's another redshirt freshman who, we hope will develop into something, but he's not ready yet. That's pretty much the consensus. He came in and dropped a dime and took the lead, right? Yeah. So and he had another wide open touchdown that got called back on a hands to the face penalty that would have iced the game for us.
Right.
So this week, Cumbie's saying it's an open competition in practice to see who gets to start. My gut tells me it's going to be Jack Turner, but I really have no way of making sense of what happened last weekend. I can't believe we went to Bullock in that spot in the fourth quarter. And like I said, to his credit, he threw a touchdown.
Yeah.
He also got a blindside sacked in overtime, and Tulsa returned it all the way to the inch line, but was stopped because his forearm, the Tulsa player's forearm, hit the pylon before the ball crossed the line, which apparently means he's out of bounds. So we got to live and fight another day, and they kicked a field goal to win in their period. But anyway, so long answer to your question. I don't know. I don't know.
And a very strange question. I guess we're just going to wait until game time to see what happens. To Louisiana Tech's credit, I want to go back to that NC State game. Very valiant effort from the Bulldogs. All things considered, they only lost by 10 points in a game that people thought the Wolfpack were just gonna roll all over them, but they did. And then you mentioned Tulsa, another close game. They fell in overtime. Both of Louisiana Tech's losses, despite being losses, they looked not only competitive, but they had a chance to maybe even win those games.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, the NC State game, I think it's a weird game. Outside of the last 4 minutes of the first half, Tech put up 3 points and really didn't have any success moving the football on offense. Now, within that little 4-minute window at the end of the first half, True Edwards had a crazy play where he hurdled a guy, spun off 2 other tacklers, and goes 71 yards to the house. Where's that against Tulsa? I don't know. He had 2 catches on like 3 targets, right? So I don't know. And that's kind of the problem with the offense is like, I don't know what our identity is. We can't really run the football. Our quarterback play is pretty inadequate to be nice about it. And this week, like, I don't even know what to tell you to answer who's going to be at quarterback. It would surprise me if we don't see both guys. But the key for Tech is our defense has been keeping us in football games.
Right.
So we had 3 turnovers against Tulsa, and we're still, like you said, we had a chance to win it at the end of the game. We had a chance to go out and win it in overtime. That's because of our defense, and they've been playing, I think beyond our wildest expectations for what they could be. And it's making us feel as fans like if we could just figure out that offense just a little bit, even just for 4 or 5 drives a game, if we could just get something going, some kind of rhythm, the defense is good enough for us to win games like 24-20, right? But the offense hasn't been good enough to get 24 points,
Yeah.
So that's been the problem.
You mentioned identity of this Louisiana Tech offense, and when you look to last season, there was no one like Smoke Harris that was the identity of that squad, who has since signed, I believe, with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of CFL. So shout out to him. He had some great games against FIU. Now you have True Edwards, who's leading the squad in receiving yards, but still, just how big of an impact has it been to this offense losing a playmaker like Smoke, and who have they brought in to at least try to fill in that role?
Yeah, I mean, Smoke Harris, obviously huge loss. And if you look at some of the leading receivers on SEC teams right now, you'll see some familiar names, right? You'll see Cyrus Allen down at Texas A&M. He's doing pretty well down there.
Yeah.
And you'll see Trey Harris at Ole Miss, who currently leads the SEC and is one of the top receivers in the country. He's probably going to be a high draft pick. So we've lost not only, and he left 2 years ago, but it's not only Smoke Harris. It's just we haven't been able to retain that talent out wide. That really was the hallmark of our offense, right? A passing offense that even in Sonny Cumbie's tenure was like, I think in 22 we were the 30th or 40th ranked passing offense in the country. Mm-hmm. That hasn't been the case this year because there's not a go-to guy. And in that NC State game, True Edwards broke out for a couple of touchdowns. A guy named Jay Wilkerson, who I had never even heard of, he was so far down the depth chart. He broke out and had 4 contested amazing catches to keep us in that NC State game. And then they just weren't there against Tulsa, right? And Jay Wilkerson tipped a ball up and caused an interception in the first quarter against Tulsa. So I mean, it's been huge to not have that impact player, that dude that you're just like, you know what? Even though our offense isn't going to amount to much this season, we've got a guy who's going to go out and catch 8 balls a game for 75 yards or more, right? We just don't have that now.
Talk about why Louisiana Tech's rushing offense has struggled so far this season. Their leading rusher, Davenport, with 82 yards. Is it because of just the lack of talent in that position? Is it because the offensive line hasn't been doing their job assisting them? Is it a bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Coming into the season, we thought the running back group was going to be the most talented group on the team. So it's been very surprising. Marquise Crosby is our guy. He's a former all-conference player. He was named to the all-conference preseason team this year. He's so injury prone. He can't stay in games. Denario Davenport has looked okay in flashes, but my co-host Nathan over at Go Tech Please Don't Die, he wrote an article last week about the problems, and he went into all the analytics of like the offensive line stats. And so he's arguing that it's the offensive lines not creating enough holes and not creating the opportunities for the running backs to get to the second and third level of the defense. So I'm going to take his word for it there. The eye test is telling me it's a little bit of both, right? It's the offensive line is not generating the holes. And then some of it has got to be the running backs not making the right reads and hitting the holes when they do exist. So we did have some flashes from a true freshman last week named Fred Robertson maybe. Shows you again. I'd never heard of him. I'm like looking at my game day program in the stands, like who's this kid number 24, and he only had 39 yards, but it was the way he was running that gave me a little bit of hope, maybe that he'll get in the rotation a little more moving forward.
And you mentioned it earlier that this Louisiana Tech team's best asset has been their entire defense. I believe they're the highest ranked defense in Conference USA. If not, they're up there. Just talk about some of the playmakers on that squad and what makes them such a dangerous defense to go up against. Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. Our defensive coordinator the last 2 years was this guy named Scott Power, and at times we're just they're clearly lining up to run, and we've got 5 guys in the box, and it's like what are we doing? They've been gashing us like Jacksonville State last year. If you watched a second of that game, you're like, what is Tech doing? They're allowing 70-yard rushing touchdowns because they're outnumbered in the box on every single play, right? We got ran out of the stadium. Now, new guy, Jeremiah Johnson, takes over this year, and this defense is completely different. He runs a 3-3-5 scheme, and I'm not really an X's and O's guy as much, but just the way that the defense plays, they fly to the football, they swarm the ball carrier, right? There's never just one guy who has to make a tackle. But the playmakers specifically are a linebacker named Colby Fields. He's been the most fun to watch. He had a pick against NC State. He had like 12 tackles in our opener against Nicholls State, and has just been, again, just flying to the football. They want to hit somebody, right? And he's an LSU transfer who had to sit out last year. The NCAA kind of dragged their feet, of course, as they do on the decision. And he didn't find out until 3 weeks into the year that he wasn't going to be able to play, but he stuck it out in practice, right, and just got better. And he's been a lot of fun. David Blay, one of our defensive linemen, has been a lot of fun to watch. And then Zach Zymos is one of the leaders on the defense as well. He's another linebacker who's just racking up tackles, basically. I mean, these are guys that we've lacked a lot of speed at the linebacker position the last couple of years as well. And that obviously helps the other team's running game. So we've been one of the worst run defenses in the country. This year's different though. I mean, we're really, like I said earlier, the defense is the reason that we even have a chance in these games, because our offense hasn't really done jack. Right. So it's kind of like the defense is making stops when they need to. They're not really getting a lot of turnovers yet. That's kind of the one area we want to see them improve, because, you know, if you give our offense a 20-yard field to work with, maybe we can score a touchdown, you know? But, you know, that's kind of the main thing. And then I would say our DBs are not as strong as maybe the group has been in the past. There's not like a dude who you're like, this guy might be drafted, right? We've had that the last few years with Willie Roberts and I'm going to forget his name, but the guy, Isaiah Brooks, I think his name was. Okay. And then, you know, even going back before that, we've got DBs still playing in the league today, right? Jay Sneed and Amik Robertson, Xavier Woods, right? Some of those names that are like etched in your memory of the late 2010s when Tech was actually worth something. And, you know, I don't know, it's early in the season, but it's not like teams are passing all over us, but it's just, I feel a lot more comfortable in the front seven than I do in the back of the defense.
Alrighty, Evan, thanks for spending some time talking with us about La Tech. I just want to ask you, if Louisiana Tech were to beat FIU at Pitbull Stadium, what needs to go right for them?
Oh man, I think defensively, you know, keying in on Jenkins, the quarterback, right, and not allowing him to have a ton of success. He's gonna get some yards, I think, but you know, just the defense is gonna have to limit the scoring, because our offense is not going to be able to keep up. If y'all are putting up you scored 42 last week, right? Y'all score 42, you're winning by multiple touchdowns, I promise. Right now, we haven't given up. We gave up 30 to NC State, so, and one of that was a pick six. So, you know, the defense gave up 23 points, I guess. So I wouldn't count on FIU scoring that much. So, but the defense is going to have to keep us in the game, and our offense is going to have to find a way to take advantage of FIU's run defense, which is pretty bad. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
You know, we have to figure out a way to run the ball. You know, we need at least 100 yards on the ground, please. And that's not asking for much. That's asking for like bottom of the barrel in terms of national rankings. You know, averaging 100 yards a game would be a bad run offense. But if we get that, I think we might be able to be in the game, because we've lacked that balance. And just, you know, a quarterback that throws for 60% with no picks. I think that's the way we win, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be an ugly, you know, I think on our show, I think I predict FIU to win like, I think I said 23-15 or something like that. Some weird score that's like, why are we all watching this game? You know, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think Sonny Cumbie's won one road game in his career. So I don't know if you wanted me to predict the score or not, but I'm just saying, like, the last time we went down there, it was I think a double overtime loss.
It was, yeah.
So, you know, I'm thinking it's going to be close, and I'm thinking FIU's gonna win this one, just because Tech hasn't shown me anything to prove they can go out and win a game on the road against anybody.
Against anyone, yeah. Okay, Evan, thank you so much for spending some time talking some Bulldogs with me, man. If you could drop your ats on socials for not just you but Go Tech, so the FIU fans can see how y'all are preparing for this game.
Yeah, if you like kind of silly coverage, you know, we take Tech very seriously. We love it, obviously, but but we try to have fun with it. It's Go Tech Please Don't Die. That's GOTECHPLSDNTDIE on Twitter. We've got a blog over at gtpdd.dog, D-O-G. And, we've got like a merch shop and, Nathan writes blog posts sometimes. We've got a podcast. Check us out. And yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Jake.
Thank you so much, Evan. All right, let's get it back to the Paws Up preview as myself and Kevin go over what you need to know about Conference USA predictions around FIU athletics and our game picks. All righty, that was Evan from Go Tech Please Don't Die. Be sure to give them a follow on social media to see how they're handling this matchup. Kevin, I know you were on the Bleed Tech Blue radio as well. You were providing some insight as well for them, so I think it is cool now that we get into the CUSA season, how all these pods, us and our opponents, are going to combine and produce some great content.
Yeah, especially La Tech. La Tech always has like a pretty big media presence for some reason.
They do.
And again, like kind of what we said, in Ruston there's not much to do, so it makes sense. So yeah, we're expecting pretty good crowds, honestly, from both Ruston and from both La Tech and FIU fans, and even media. I mean, we hear that La Tech brings a lot of people, and it's the first conference game of the season. So I think Pitbull Stadium's going to have a lot of folks in that press box.
Alrighty then, it is time to take a break from talking about football and talk about what you need to know about around FIU athletics. Who to keep an eye on in the 305. Let's talk about men's soccer. They have a 2-4-1 record at the time of recording. They're going to be coming off their matchup against Southern Methodist, SMU, and Dallas this past Wednesday. Their next home game is actually going to be the day after the Louisiana Tech game at the Leyva Family Field against Tulsa. That is a AAC matchup on Sunday, September the 29th at 7 p.m. That'll actually be the first of a 2-game homestand. They'll also take on UAB on Saturday, October 5th. Gosh, October is already, it's just about to be here, over at Leyva Family Field. So Sunday at 7 o'clock, FIU versus Tulsa for men's soccer. Women's soccer currently has a 6-3 record at the time of recording. They'll be coming off their matchup on Friday against Liberty. We'll see if they won that or not. They're also going to be starting up a 2-game homestand beginning on Thursday, October the 3rd at 7 p.m. when they host the New Mexico State Aggies. They'll then take on the UTEP Miners on Sunday, October the 6th. And last but not least, let's check out what women's volleyball is doing. They have a 2-11 record. Not a great start to the season so far. They unfortunately did not win a game in the 305 Challenge. However, they'll look to get off the schneid when they take on the UTEP Miners on both Friday and Saturday. By the time this preview drops, the Friday game is passed. However, the Saturday game will be at 11 a.m. That's over at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center. So you could technically do that doubleheader. Go to the volleyball game at 11 and then go to La Tech at 6 o'clock. They'll then head on the road for a doubleheader against Middle Tennessee on October 4th and 5th. And then, all righty. Now it's time to talk about this week in CUSA. And I got to say, if you're a fan of Kevin Barral or just Kevin in general, this past week for Conference USA, dear God, it's one to, just like FIU football, you just have to put it to your past and just focus on the road ahead, because things just did not go your way. So let's take a look at what happened. Jack State blew out Southern Miss. Good for them. They needed a bounce back win so flipping badly.
They needed a win.
And it just happened. And it was a pretty convincing win too. Offense was firing on all cylinders. Defense looked good too. Duke blew out Middle Tennessee. We're not too surprised there. I think we both had Duke anyway. So yeah, nothing shocking there. Colorado State, even without their top wide receiver, looked pretty good. Good enough to take down UTEP. I don't know what the odds were, but it was only a 10-point loss for UTEP. Not too shabby, all things considered, for the Monmouth.
Getting it going, man.
Monmouth beats FIU. Liberty takes care of business against East Carolina. Liberty, they always find the way to win at the end of the game. I think they were trailing at halftime, and then they came back in the late third.
They were down 17-zip.
I mean, that's ridiculous that they can just do that. But I mean, that's what makes Liberty such a good team, and that's why they're still undefeated. So Tulsa beat Louisiana Tech in overtime. That's a game that could have gone either way. It went towards the Golden Hurricanes at the end there. So Sam Houston State beat New Mexico State pretty handily, 31-11, kind of a snoozer. But the Bearcats just keep rolling. And like I said, I think it's going to be between Sam Houston and Western Kentucky for that 2 spot and a trip to the Conference USA title game. Just the way things are going. And then lastly, Western Kentucky wins a close matchup against Toledo. So good for them. Western also is looking to be good. When Western Kentucky and Sam Houston face off, I think in November, that's going to be worth watching because that'll pretty much probably decide who gets that 2 spot. Kevin just accidentally left. He's probably fixing up some things on his end. So he probably didn't want to hear me. Kev?
We're good.
You have something? Okay, we're good. I thought you wanted to bail real quick because you didn't want to hear how you did this past week in Conference USA. I went 7-1. I had a great week. The only loss I had, it was picking an FBS team to beat an FCS team, and I got that wrong. I mean, Kevin went 2-6.
Dude, which ones did I get right?
So you also took FIU over Monmouth. Got that wrong. You picked Southern Miss over Jack State.
No, I want to know who I got right. I don't care who I got wrong.
Who you got right?
I chose Duke for sure.
You got Duke over. Hang on, I need to pull the list back up here.
I think I got Tulsa too over La Tech.
No. You picked La Tech over Tulsa.
Oh my god.
You picked UTEP over Colorado State. You picked Eastern Carolina over Liberty, and you picked Toledo over Western Kentucky. So that means the only other game you got right.
So I must have taken Sam Houston.
We were both on Sam Houston over New Mexico State, and we were both on FIU
What's
over
New
Monmouth.
Mexico State's record? They got to be like 1-4.
New Mexico State currently has a record
of 1-3, right?
I think 1-3. Yeah, I don't know if I don't think they've had their bye week yet. So
much for the conference poll choosing New Mexico State as like the 5th best team or something.
They're 1-3. Yeah, they beat South. They beat SEMO. They lost to Liberty. They got shut out by Fresno State. The game was on True TV, by the way. And
SEMO beat them too.
They lost to Sam Houston. So
they should be 0-4 right now.
True. All righty. Let's get into this week. Kevin, you're going to – oh, by the way, season standings. Kevin was actually leading the season standings before this week. I have a record of 27-7. Kevin has a record of 24-10. So, I know.
I didn't even think it was that bad.
Oh, my. It was rough. You have some ground to cover, so let's see if it's going to happen this week. Unfortunately for you, there's not many games. There's only 7. Both UTEP and Jacksonville State have the week off. Let's start off. Over in the Northeast, you have Western Kentucky taking on a feisty Boston College team at noon. The whole country saw what Boston College can do when they defeated Florida State not that long ago. Since then, they've looked all right. They were top 25 for a little bit. Now they're not. I'm gonna take Boston College here.
Shout out Grayson James. I'm taking Boston College.
Has he played a snap yet? No, he hasn't.
I don't think so.
I mean, maybe he did some garbage time against I don't know if they took on an FCS team. Maybe he did some, fourth quarter they put him in. I don't know. This is going to be a great game. Oh my gosh. Sam Houston State is taking on Texas State of the Sun Belt. We've seen the amazing start that Sam Houston State has had, and they have been wonderful. But Texas State is a fine 2-1 school. I mean, they beat Lamar, which is FCS. They beat UTSA. They destroyed UTSA 49-10. They lost a close one to Arizona State 31-28. By the way, this is going to be a neutral site game. They're playing this at NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans.
That's pretty cool, actually.
That's really cool. This is a big rivalry. Apparently, when these teams were both once in FCS, they fought each other a lot. So, this is a toss-up. You could go either way here. I'm going to go Texas State.
Me too. Texas State.
All righty. Oh, my gosh. A week ago, I would have said this was an amazing matchup, but Liberty is taking on App State. I believe it's James Madison currently leading the Sun Belt overall. I think they're undefeated. App State, they looked good prior to their matchup against South Alabama, where they just got the brakes beaten off of them, man. So I don't know. Liberty keeps finding ways to win. It's like betting against the Chiefs. You can't do it because they're just going to kick your ass. I'm not betting against Liberty. I'm taking the Flames.
Joey Aguilar has been so good this year.
I have him on fantasy, dude. We have him on fantasy. We have him
he's
in our
really, really, really good this year. I'm going to take the Flames just because I think they have the better defense, and App State's really struggled to stop the run this year. But I wouldn't be shocked if the App State offense really takes off in this game.
So, App State. By the way, they beat Eastern Carolina. Prior to that, they got blown out
to
Clemson. They had 66 points dropped on them against Clemson, and then they beat an FCS team. Anyway, all right. UT Martin's taking on Kennesaw State. I think this is going to be their homecoming game. It's at 6:00. I mean, Kennesaw's due for a win in FBS, and I think they're going to get it against this FCS squad. Give me Kennesaw.
Yeah, somehow UT Martin's actually favored over Kennesaw, but give me
Martin, by the way, is of the Ohio Valley / Big Sky Conference. Just to provide some context, they got destroyed by Kansas State. They lost to SEMO in overtime. They beat North Alabama, and guess who beat them last week?
I don't know.
Missouri State, joining Conference USA next season. Anyway,
give me Kennesaw.
Yeah, I'm taking Kennesaw. I don't think UT Martin's a great FCS squad.
Hey man, they're favored. They're favored.
They are favored. I don't know what Vegas is smoking there, but no, Kennesaw is better than their record would tell you. We're obviously saving La Tech and FIU to the end. Middle Tennessee's taking on Memphis. Now I know Memphis had a really bad week last week. I want to double check who they lost to, but it was Army. They had 56 points dropped on them against Army.
Dude,
prior to that, they beat Florida State.
Army's been on a heater this year, man.
Well, Army and Navy, they're both undefeated.
Yeah, I think they're both undefeated, aren't they? Or they're
both undefeated. This is gonna be the greatest Army Navy game by the time the end of the season rolls around. But
no one can stop the triple option.
Prior to that, Memphis was 3-0. They beat Florida State, they beat Troy, and they beat North Alabama. And Middle Tennessee
good teams, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not trusting the Blue Raiders. Give me Memphis.
Yeah, give me Memphis.
And then lastly, you have New Mexico and New Mexico State at 8 o'clock. This is the battle of mid, Kevin. Both these teams just look really bad. New Mexico State, I think, is 0-4. I know they lost to Montana State in week 0.
No. New Mexico's 0-4.
Oh, yeah. What did I say?
You said New Mexico State.
Okay, my bad. New Mexico is 0-4. The Lobos, they lost to Montana State in week 0. They haven't looked good since. Pretty much I'm taking New Mexico State because they're at home, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a really good game, but yeah, give me the Aggies.
All right, let's see what the rest of the Conference USA podcast roundtable thinks. We have 2 sweeps. Everyone's taken Liberty over App State, and everyone's taken Memphis over Middle Tennessee. We have a couple of upsets. Ben from Fan the Flames is picking Western over Boston College.
That's fair.
I don't know what and Caleb must have said something to the Owl Chat podcast, or likewise from 700 Pelham Road. They're taking UT Martin over Kennesaw, which, I mean, maybe they're just going with what Vegas is saying, you know. Both us, spoiler alert, both us as well as Caleb from Pelham Road are taking FIU, so that's
cool. Yeah, baby.
And some very mixed thoughts for both Sam Houston State and Texas State, as well as New Mexico and New Mexico State. Everyone's pretty split on that. So make of that info with what you will. So, alrighty then. It is time to ask a pretty big question, Kevin. Who will win this game between FIU and Louisiana Tech? So, before we get into our picks, let's see what EA Sports said this week. And I did remember to put on the Biscayne blue uniforms for FIU. Let's see what happened.
Well, this one had all the suspense of a bug hurtling his way toward a windshield, and they did splatter them. An absolutely dominating performance.
You got to give the coaching staff a ton of credit. They obviously had their guys ready to play and motivated right from the opening kick. All 3 phases we saw, just spectacular football. No mental mistakes, David. You really can't play better than that.
Okay. Looking at some stats from that game, Kevon Jenkins actually didn't look that great. He went 6 for 18, 92 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. What do they say, Kevin? It's defense that wins championships. And in that sim, FIU forced 4 turnovers, 3 picks, and a fumble. Defense looked good. So see what happens. By the way, Claude Larkins, who got that MVP, in the stats, he also had, in addition to that tackle and a sack, he had a forced fumble, and he recovered a couple of fumbles as well. So he had a monster game on defense. So we'll see. All righty. So now the question has come. Who is winning this game? We say this every week. It's a must-win game for FIU if they want to keep their season alive. FIU or Louisiana Tech. Kevin, kick it off. Who's winning this game? And the score.
It's so hard to feel good about a team after losing to an FCS team. But some way, somehow, I find a way to feel pretty good about FIU. But just in case, I am unfortunately going to take La Tech to defeat the Panthers by a final score of 23-21. I think it'll be a very close game. Wouldn't be shocked if it goes into double overtime. La Tech is a really good defense. I think FIU's defense is going to hold up as well, which would lead to a pretty low-scoring game. But just at the end of the day, I just feel like FIU just won't be able to stop their run game no matter how bad it's been this season. I mean, Monmouth's run game wasn't good, and look what they did. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is the game where Louisiana Tech really, really breaks loose.
I feel pretty similar, Kevin. It's going to be low scoring because both defenses are going to step up, especially FIU's who are obviously reeling after their crappy performance against Monmouth. But this is the perfect game to right their wrongs, right? You have an unproven receiving core for La Tech. You have a running game that leaves a lot of questions to still be answered. And FIU's offense, I think, is going to have a field day overall against Louisiana Tech's defense. I think combined with how they looked in the second half against FAU and obviously how they looked against Monmouth passing-wise, it's been really, really good. They just need their running backs and to combine with that, their offensive line to create some holes for them to get going. And I think this is going to be the game where that happens. I think that I'm assuming all the national media, everyone going with Louisiana Tech because FIU just lost to an FCS school, it creates the perfect trap game for the Bulldogs. And I think FIU is going to take advantage. I am going to say the Panthers get back in the W column, but it's not going to be easy, by a final score of 21-20.
Wow.
It's going to be a nail biter. It is going to be rough.
I hope I'm wrong.
I think the Panthers get the job done. So, all righty. By the way, I mentioned earlier, they're in the Biscayne Blues. I mean, I love those uniforms for FIU. Yeah. They're probably my second favorite behind, the Vice. So they're good. By the way, there's a giveaway. I think it's the first 200 students receive something along those lines. Receive a Biscayne Blue T-shirt. Kevin, do you remember what it says? I can't remember what it says.
Vamos Panteras.
There you go.
That's Heritage Day at the ballpark, at the stadium.
All righty then. So 6 o'clock kickoff between the Panthers and the Bulldogs. If you can't watch the game, it's on ESPN Plus. And let's just hope things turn around for this Panther squad this season, Kevin. Now would be a perfect time to do that.
Yeah.
All righty. So good luck to the Panthers. Get your sleep in, and then tomorrow it's down to business, baby. Till then, paws up.
Paws up, baby.